Hi, my name is Gene Monterastelli, and the video you are about to watch is a recording from the 24 Hours of Tapping, which is an event that is held annually to support the Peaceful Heart Network. If you appreciate or learn anything from this video, the easiest way for you to say thank you is to support the work of the Peaceful Heart Network, who has worked with over 300,000 migrants, immigrants, prisoners, folks in disaster areas by bringing tapping to them. As you watch the video, across the bottom, you will see a link where you can support their amazing work. And I hope you enjoy this conversation. Aga is a trauma consultant, a cancer nurse specialist, and a health empowerment coach with over 23 years of experience in oncology, trauma-informed practices, and emotional well-being across public and charity sectors. She's developed transformational support models that integrate expertise from trauma, cancer care, psychology, and public health to address the holistic needs of individuals facing significant life challenges. As a cancer nurse specialist and a health coach, Aga empowers patients and healthcare professionals by providing well-being strategies, promoting resilience and emotional recovery. She supports individuals in navigating their cancer journey, managing stress, and reclaiming purpose, combining a compassionate approach with evidence-based techniques to foster healing and personal growth. Please welcome to our virtual stage, Aga. Good morning, or
Good morning
almost good
to you.
afternoon for you. We're closing in on your lunchtime. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm glad joining for coffee with you and everyone else. And what an amazing contact so far. So I'm really, really grateful. Thank you. And I can't believe it, the introduction. Really, that all that I do. Not sure.
Well, so you miss some of my less graceful introductions because my dyslexia gets the best of me, and I have learned that if I just go full volume, for some reason the dyslexia doesn't catch up with me. When I slow down, then the letters get all jumbled on top of each other, to the point that when I introduced Peta Stapleton earlier, she just went, "That was funny," as
I
she was
know,
just
right?
laughing at my mispronunciations as I was navigating it. So
You did well.
we're,
You did well with me. Thank you so much for that. I'm
we're
really grateful. Just listening to Carol's, I am grateful for everything you do, everything everyone else is doing, and the work that I'm capable of doing using EFT as a main tool that now I'm introducing into my practice.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do to kind of set the table before we step into this, because most of the folks we've been talking to have been working in a more traditional, what we would think of, I go to an EFT practitioner to do something like this. And you work in multiple settings, but the conversation that we're going to have today is slightly unique. And so I would like, for the folks who don't know you and haven't met you before, if you could just start by just kind of giving a little context to your work around what we're going to be talking about today, so folks can kind of get a sense of what life looks like day to day for you. Then we can dive into and talk about how you're using the tools with the patients, with the other clinicians, and that sort of stuff as we navigate this.
Yeah, absolutely. I am also really grateful for the topic that we brought in, which is a support of people who are affected by cancer.
Yeah.
And when we bring that into a public space and talking about people affected by cancer, I usually hear, so do you mean the cancer patients? And then I said, actually, not really. When I'm
Yeah.
thinking about people affected by cancer, it's everyone. And, we have in the UK quite horrific statistics saying that 1 in 2 people by 2030 will be affected by cancer.
Hmm.
By no means that means you're going to have a cancer yourself,
Right.
but that means you may be supporting your family, your members of your community, or you're going to be working with someone. And when I say working, I also don't mean being a healthcare provider. I mean being a boss in the
Yeah.
in different environment at work, or being a colleague. So I just want to set the context to this, and that is, being affected by cancer does not mean you are going through that disease yourself. So that's first.
Yeah, and as you say that, like when they're doing cancer fundraisers here in the United States, and they oftentimes doing it at sporting events, people are given the opportunity to write on a sign a name of someone in their life who has been touched in this way directly. And you have a baseball stadium of 35,000 people, and over 30,000 of those people are holding that sign up. And so this sense of how we are touched by that, I like. I like that you're giving a chance to frame it in that way, because no, I am not going through it, but yes, it is something that is significant in my life. And so I love how you're stretching that definition to include everybody who is touched in that way.
Yes, and I'm doing that probably because of my own experience, and that will lead into letting you know how I'm working now and what I do and why I'm doing it. So yes, you've introduced me very well with 23 years of being in the cancer space, actually 25 now. I'm just going to correct that because I've been a little bit longer and I didn't realize that.
Well,
But I was,
the way I've learned to solve that problem is my bio says since 1996, and then I don't have to do the math every single time.
yes, that's true. So what's my story and how I've ended up in becoming this, what we'll call integrative holistic practitioner in the cancer space? And that was, unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, through my own experiences of cancer as a professional. And what comes with that is an amount of traumatic experience or stressful experiences that led me into exploration of different avenues
Mhm.
of how to deal with that, both for myself and for my patients. So how it all started was I've trained as a clinical nurse when I was very young, a long time ago in Poland, and then I relocated into UK, and I started my career from scratch. So I came and I was specializing already in cancer care back home in Poland, so it was very good environment for me to start. And then at some point through my career, I landed up in the space in which I was holding 3 full-time jobs in a 1 full-time job paid. So I was really lucky. The trust that I had amazing boss who was my supervisor and my absolutely amazing leader, and she kind of let me flourish a lot. And because like yourself, I have mind that just rush and go into different directions. I then had 3 roles. And I will tell you a little bit about, because that will make sense in the
Yep.
wider context. So one of my roles was a clinical lead for cancer, clinical lead for acute oncology. And that role is very specific here in the UK. So what we do, we set up the team, and the team looked after patients who are being admitted into a non-cancer unit. So they can be admitted to the surgical unit, and they may be to the medical unit or geriatric unit because of the situation with the beds. So we have a big hospital I'm working with, about 8,000 staff members, with a lot of patients coming and going. And our cancer center isn't enough to get all the people in. So we have people being kind of dislocated around. And that service, I was setting that up from scratch. So that meant I had a new team with new dynamics, with new consultants, trying to make the best out of it, at the same time as going and negotiating the cares with the people who felt not very confident looking after cancer patients. So there was a lot of anxieties, a lot of pushbacks. So there was a lot of negotiation skills that I needed to navigate, and very operational. So that meant, we have these patients on the unit, we have to not get rid of them, but move them
Right.
around, discharge them very quickly. So there was a lot of pressure going on in there. So I needed to manage that. At the same time, I was also having a second job, which was cancer educator. So I'm an educator by background alongside my nursing career. So I teach, and I was given that opportunity to teach staff who are not cancer trained about cancer. So I was developing programs about cancer awareness, teaching people how to speak to people. That was my big passion. And that was another role. So I was doing a lot of that in between my operational role and managerial role. And then the third role was very specific. And this is where a lot of uncomfortable experience I was put through, or kind of being with. And that was a specific role called the Cancer of Unknown Primary Clinical Nurse Specialist. And what that means for people who don't know in here, and I understand also this could be a sensitive topic, so I would like to
Mhm.
bring attention to us. So notice what's happening when I'm talking about those things, because we will address that in a moment. But what that means is people who are living their lives, and all of a sudden they have a lot of symptoms that are really unknown to them, and they're going into the GPs and they're having the checks again and again and again, and we kind of can't pinpoint of what's happening. And at some point they feel so unwell, they end up in the A&E department. And in that A&E department, they go through the investigations. And usually what happens, there is a find that tells us the cancer we don't know where it's coming from, but it already spreads in a lot of different
Mhm.
places. And 9 out of 10, that is a situation when we get called, we bring the consultant along the way, and we need to enter the space in which we have patients with their family. And what we need to say is, unfortunately, this is the type of a cancer you're having. This is the stage that you're in. and there is nothing that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means to a patient and the family is
Yeah.
that they now face the most challenging situation probably in their life. And this is what I was doing in between that operational state, in between that education, and I was doing that on the daily basis. The issue wasn't the patients that I find, the issue was the way that I have to support the clinicians to have those conversations.
Mm.
And very often what we noticed, and that was much before COVID, actually, before health and well-being and looking after staff was so up in the face, and we're now starting to implementing different strategies. Those consultants and the junior doctors that I was supporting were not skilled or trained to hold that space in the most
Right.
supportive way. So usually what happened was they were walking in already stressed that they have to have that conversation in between their busy schedule, very difficult and challenging conversation, and then they were leaving. Okay, and they have a different ways of doing that communication. And sometimes I had a consultant who was, very caring and left me behind with kind of halfway through to support patients. But very often what we say amongst the nurses in here, we say, we were picking up the pieces. So I found myself in between those discussions, finding patients in the family that I needed to pick up the pieces for them. And I wasn't skilled to do that.
Right.
Because I'm an information giver. I'm a trained traditionally in the NHS, and I was in the position of expert. And what kind of expert am I here having these conversations with the patients who are now facing the most challenging time in their life? I wasn't trained in that. I'm not a psychologist. In the nursing training back then, we didn't have a coaching style conversations. We didn't have any tools and techniques that we could offer, because we are framed in the space in which we are giving advice and things to do to heal people, right? To treat people. You can't treat people in here. So what do we do with that?
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of that. So you can see in the busy day when I had a lot of negotiation doing, and also having in between 2 or 3 conversations a day like this. So I was trying to navigate that, how do I down-regulate my nervous system? And I didn't do a good job, right? So at some point, probably a few years down the line in that, 3 different jobs, I found myself coping in the hospital environment, but not so well at home. So I found myself struggling. And the way I manifest stress was, lack of sleep, probably a little bit of wine at 5 o'clock and then 4 o'clock and then right after work, right? So I've noticed that my health is affected. I can't sleep. I'm snappy at my husband and my children. They could feel it. There's something not going on. But that wasn't so bad, because as an NHS, as a healthcare professionals, you kind of say to yourself, well, you need to deal with that. That's the part of your job. It's okay. Right? You're normalizing that. So I tried to normalize that, and that didn't work very well. And my pivotal point in my career was when I went to work, and I kind of, I was a bit more frustrated with that operational side. But again, I normalized that. I said, well, I'm just, the system is broken. The people are not collaborating. All that is fine. I can deal with that. But the moment in which I was given the referral, and I look at the referral, and then I look at the consultant that I'm going with, and I could deal with the consultant. That was fine. I don't like it. He doesn't know how to talk to people. But I said to myself at that point, I don't want to go and see this patient. I don't like seeing the patient. And in that moment, I was like, oh my goodness, this is something that I never said to myself before. Yeah. And my nursing career, my being a nurse for patients, being with patients, was at the core value that I was carrying. And I didn't want to go and see the patient. And in that moment, I said, there needs to be something here I need to do. So fortunately, in the cancer center that I work with, we have a great integrative, holistic center, and it's attached to our hospital as a charity. It's called the Fountain Center. And what they do, they provide that additional support for patients that NHS doesn't have time and money. So we do meditation, we do Reiki, we do, all that stuff that is amazing, additional supportive. So I went there and I said, listen, I refer all the patients for you. I love you guys, but I don't like going to see the patients. Please help me. And then they said, okay, go and have a chat with the health coach. I didn't know what the health coach was at that time. And I went to see her, and I had one conversation in which the space was different. It shifted. I felt empowered. It was me that led the conversation. She was just helping me create this space. And the way I felt, it was like, if you can do that for me, I want to do that to my staff as well. I want to be able to create that space because I know that will help. So what I did then, I went to my boss and I said, listen, you need to pay for my training. I want to be a coach. And that's what she did. She said, that's fine, Aga, if that's going to help your team and you, we want to keep you, we're going to pay for this. And that's how my journey of self-discovery and kind of shifting from that information-giving nurse to a person who will be able to create the space for their staff to start from. So I did that. I've trained. Along the way, of course, when you do that, you start coaching and doing that sort of thing. So I went back into Fountain Center and I said, listen, can I coach my staff in there? Sorry, my dog. This is live, by the way. My dog is now going crazy here. He always does that. So they said, yes, that's fine. You can coach staff. We will put you on the register. We'll give you supervision. That's fine. You're going to be our baby coach. I wasn't fully qualified then yet. But the first person they gave me was a patient. They said, okay, you can do your stuff, but we're going to give you one patient. And it was a cancer patient. And that's how my journey of being with cancer patients using something different than nursing skills. And that's what I've landed. And I absolutely loved it. And that really led me into a major decision in my life, which was I'm going to resign from that clinical role. I'm going to stay in education only. So I kind of split that a bit. And then I'm going to become a coach. And that's how I've started. So I then started coaching patients and the staff at the same time. So I've seen like two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
And when I was doing that, there was something I realized very quickly, that my coaching skills is a cognitive approach. We talk about things. We are creating a space. It was great and very empowering. And then NLP, I've trained in that as well. I've trained in mindfulness-based therapy because that's what you do when you start discovering yourself through your education in particular modalities. And very quickly, I realized that even me, I still haven't processed the traumatic experience that I have because they sit in the body and I didn't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
The same with my patients and the same with my staff. So I was really lucky that we have in that Fountain Center, we have a day of introduction to EFT. So my friend who came and she did a little talk and we did tapping straight away and everything changed. And I absolutely fell in love because all of a sudden I not only could hold the space for the patients, space for the staff, I could now provide a tool that helped them shift that on the body level. So we already suddenly we've got mind body connect tool. And that's how I end up being in this space. So what I've done since then was I really I became integrative practitioners within this space. So when I work with staff, we explore the experiences that they have when they provide care for cancer patients. So I teach them about the conversation that they have, the communication skills that they have, what impact that may have on the patients, because now I understand the trauma and traumatic impact that may have on it. And I provide them with the tools so now they can implement in the difficult conversations, they can implement for themselves as a health and well-being strategy. And I also support patients through the journey. So I work with patients directly and with the staff directly and merge that together. So they both now have skills that they can utilize. And this is what I do right now. So I get involved in many, get involved with many ways, to be honest. So I chair the British Society for Integrative Oncology, which is an organization that works towards awareness around integrative approaches, EFT including. I work with National Center for Integrative Medicine because there's a lot of medical staff that are working a slightly out of this traditional way. They look at people holistically, so they know, we have to give them physical, spiritual, emotional care, and that skill is really needed for them as well. So we kind of cross the barriers of being that traditionally trained practitioner when it's just information giving to a bit more holistic when you are noticing what it means when you get this diagnosis, what it means when you have to work through the treatment, and how that looks for you and what tools and techniques that you need. And EFT is one of the most popular now. And I walk down my cancer center and I see patients waiting for seeing consultants, and they just keep tapping and say, oh, that's you, mine there? Yes, I'm sure you came for the group chat and things. So that's what I do now.
And one of the things, like, inside of that story, I think, just like for those of us who are not in that setting, that I think really deserves underlining is that many of the people who are joining us are folks who are natural helpers and are folks who are helpers in formal and informal ways.
Yeah.
And when I see that as an identity, either explicitly I'm a helper or implicitly that's just kind of the way I navigate the world, there's a part of us that feels like, well, since that's my role, that's what I do.
Mm.
And the recognition in that story where you recognized, like, like, you don't end up with all of those roles and all of those hats and all of those responsibilities unless there's a part of you that really feels called to all of those things. Like, you're taking those things on because there's a part that wants to do it and engage in that particular
Yeah.
way. And to recognize the fact that just because I have a desire and I have a natural disposition doesn't mean that I don't also need to be taking care of myself inside of that. Just because I'm good at something doesn't mean that there isn't also a cost for me being good at that particular thing. And I have found people who are good at that thing and naturally good at that thing are even less likely to be doing their own work and looking in that internal way. And so I think there's a great model in that moment of your recognition where you're going, oh, even though I have these skills and I've been doing this well, look at all this stuff I have in my backpack that I haven't looked at and I don't know that I'm carrying around, but boy, is it weighing me down in every single thing that I'm doing. And just like giving helpers permission to go, oh yeah, I need to be processing and working and taking care of myself as I am navigating all of that stuff. Even though I might be the most technically skilled helper, formally or informally, in my environment, that doesn't mean that that is just my responsibility. And then I got to deal with all that afterwards.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. And this is a really good point because I think that the awareness of what we are, so what our values and beliefs and around the environment that we are working with, because you can have all passion and all need to support, and many of us do. And many of us in the tapping world, we are natural helpers. We want to go
Mhm.
and we want that drive. And we see that alongside volunteers, there is a need
Yep.
to help. And what you're referring to, I think, is what I've experienced myself. So I was great nurse. I did everything that needs to be done,
Mhm.
but I was carrying this load. And the reason for this is, and this is through my experience of supervision and self-reflection, and kind of being in tune to myself. And that is a learned skills. It didn't come to me naturally. So as a nurses, we do reflective work, but we don't
Right.
go beyond. We don't really tune in what the load of emotional load is that we're having. And as a practitioner, or as anyone that actually feel that urge to help, I think the biggest concept that I would recommend to look into and really get in tune with is the difference between empathetic state and compassionate state. And that's the change, that's the difference that make the difference to me when I
Yeah.
recognize the difference between those two. And I always say, there's a lot of metaphors around it, and one of the big
Of
popular
course.
one, and I always use that, is the river, right? And so when you think about whoever you support, or whatever environment that you are in, you feel that draw into support, it's like a river. It could be, very messy, could be
Mhm.
full of debris, could be, very fast. So when you're entering the empathy state, you're going into that river,
Yeah.
right? You can get swamped, you can get bashed, you can, all that, you can get drowned a little bit, right? You are in the river. Sometimes it's a good feeling. Actually, I was quite addicted to that. And
Mhm.
I was buzzing when I go in there and kind of feel the feelings with patients and then leaving because I felt fulfilled,
Yeah.
right? But that was burning me at the back. So I had empathy strain, that's what we call,
Yeah.
right? And when I learned through that self-reflection, and definitely through tapping, that being in compassionate state means you getting out of the river. You become very skillful and competent witness of what that river looks like. And you can help the person to navigate that river. You can get some debris out together. You can empower a patient to take that debris. That's what tapping does a lot, but you're not entering the river. And that becomes the safest space. So you can't drain, or you can't strain, or you can't fatigue compassion,
Yeah.
but you can fatigue and drain empathy. There is a big difference.
The vocabulary that I use, and this might just be one of those differences between British English and American English, is for me, the distinction is sympathy and empathy. Same type thing, like I am empathetic to the people in my personal life, I am sympathetic to my clients and present to them in that particular way. And like what you're describing, it's just a vocabulary difference, but you're describing the place that I'm coming from. And I think, and one thing I want to underline inside of this, because this is a story that I hear lots of tapping practitioners tell, is we understand the power of borrowing benefits. And so I'm tapping with a client, and therefore I'm getting borrowing benefits. And like, there is a possibility, because I'm stimulating these points while I am being present and I'm leading someone through it. For me, that is not borrowing benefits. For me, that is not sufficient for me to be taking care of myself. That I've heard lots of tapping practitioners say, "Oh, I'm fine because I'm tapping all day with my clients." And even being in the compassionate state, not the empathetic state that you're talking about, that's like, that from my lived experience, that is not sufficient for me to be healthy, to say, oh yeah, I tap all day because I tap with my clients. And like recognizing that, like, yes, there might be some benefit to that particular thing, but in a lot of ways, it's like, I am leading a yoga class, therefore I'm getting a chance to do some of these things. That's not the same thing as a yoga practice.
No, it helps. I
Yep.
can vouch for that, definitely. But what I think what you're saying here is that, well, definitely what I've experienced is the key word for me is noticing. So you can tap, and
Yep.
I do a lot of tapping. I have about 8 clients a week plus the group,
Yep.
and I'm noticing what am I feeling with or am I feeling for?
Yep.
Right? Am I staying out of the river? I'm getting in the river. If I do, I notice that, and that takes skillful practitioner, because I know that very often we get into that patient's or
Yeah.
client's space and we are stopping noticing what's happening to us. And you're absolutely right. We think because we're tapping, we'll be fine. Well, actually not. That state of noticing is really important when you get into therapeutic
Yeah.
relationships. So noticing what's happening to you. And this is something I teach my clinicians a lot. So the doctors that I teach the tapping, you can offer that to a patient, but notice what's happening to you. And this is one of the first thing I do for my junior doctors. So when the doctors
Mhm.
coming into oncology, we've got training hospitals, so they go through different departments. They go into oncology. I teach them about the communication skills and I teach them tapping. And the first thing I ask them to do is explore your belief about cancer. You're coming into a space from outside, right?
Mhm.
You haven't chosen this specialty yet. You start from what is the belief about cancer, because this is what you bring into a space and
Yeah.
can very quickly get you into the river. If there is a past history, if there is a close one, if there is a
Yeah.
generational trauma that you have no idea that you
Right.
carry, okay, you start from that. What is your belief around that? Because it will affect you. And then we tap, and then that comes up. And all of a sudden they start clearing things up a little bit, making a better understanding of where they are. And I do the same to a patient. They're coming into a space for help, usually with anxiety, complex decision making process, that sort of help need in crisis.
Yep.
We just do simple tapping, no words. So, Peaceful Heart Network, TTT is brilliant for that. We just starting from that, bring the feeling of the safety. How does it feel? And then we go into exploration, what it means to you, because that is what you're bringing into this space. Not sure if you diverted a little bit, but
Yeah, that's great. And so in that setting, so I would like to, in the time we have, I'd love to have a conversation about you working with clinicians, you working with patients, and just kind of talking through that in that sort of way. So let's, just because we're in the professional setting, talk about that a little bit. Just out of curiosity, like, what is the level of openness in sharing this with team members? And I would be curious if you have any thoughts on this about generationally, if there's a difference. And maybe generational is the wrong word, but like the amount of experience the clinician has, being the junior folks who are coming in as part of the training stuff versus the folks who have been in it for a decade versus the folks who have been in it for multiple decades, as you're bringing these things that, like, for you and I, feel commonplace because it's something that is integrated into our life, where I'm sure many of the people in this particular setting, this is the first time they've heard the word tapping. This is the first time they have seen something like this, and might just be wondering, is the person stemming from anxieties we're sitting here versus seeing this as intervention? Like, what is what has the acceptance been like? And then talk about like what that actual work is like once they are engaged in that way.
Are we talking about clinicians or patients?
Let's clinicians. We'll do
Clini-
patients next. Yeah,
Okay,
clinicians.
perfect.
Yeah,
Clinicians. Okay. So it it all becomes really clear once they try it. So that's what I'm starting
got
from.
you.
So my new
Yeah,
junior doctors, when they're coming in, we talk about the communication skills, we talk about the cancer in general. And then when I ask that question, what it means to you, that's when the pin drops. Okay,
yeah,
because everyone have a feeling about cancer. Like, I
yeah.
don't know, I haven't stumbled across anyone that may be fearful, that may be a little bit more like, well, I'm denying, it's not going to happen to me, or, but I don't know anyone at the moment. So ask me 25 years ago, I
Yeah,
had very rarely knew anyone from my community that had cancer or had someone that had cancer. It was there. Well,
right.
I don't know anyone right now who would not know what the word is and
Yep.
not have someone affected, including children.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's where I start. I start what it means to you. And that reflective moment then brings emotion. And then I say to them, well, would you like to try something that will help you explore the emotions that you have attached to it? And that's what we do. And I said, it's a simple technique. I go science, right? So
Yep.
I like this bank
Yep.
science because that's the environment that I'm in.
Of
And I'm
course.
explaining in the way of like neuroscience and how that works in the brain. But I do that after we do a little round of tapping.
And I want to grab a hold of that because this is the mistake that I made for the first 18 months as tapping and most tappers make is that if we have the conversation about tapping before we tap, they're going to ask the question, does it work? If
Yes.
we have the conversation after they've done the round of tapping, they go, how does that work?
I
And
agree.
there is like, does this work and how does this work? Those are radically different questions. Those are radically different energies in how we engage with it. And I love the way you're presenting it. You're not, would you like to try this tapping thing? You're not presenting them a tool. You're presenting them an opportunity for a possible outcome. And people are not interested in tools. People are interested in outcomes. And so, because you're meeting them exactly where they are with the thing that they're feeling in the moment, and you're saying, hey, we can explore this and make this a gentler experience for you. They're like, yes, I want to try that thing. And then all of a sudden it's much harder for them to deny their lived experience. So like not just in your setting. I think this is something that all of us who are trying to share tools in the world, like just that simple model of finding a place to introduce it, then talk about what it is versus the other way around makes people so much more receptive to it. So I love that you're doing that super intentionally in that setting.
Oh yes, I'm trying to be super intentional because I've learned from my own mistakes. So I was exactly on other way around before, and
Yeah,
it just didn't work. So we kind of pull out, but it came from few mistakes and few experiences. And then what happens is that would be helpful for my patients. And
yeah,
that's the next step. And then I
that's right.
go, yes, you can teach them. It's very easy, right? Or you can send them into the fountain center and we will do it with them. And we've got groups. And then what it becomes, I found that there is a shift then from being those doctors who are expected to deliver models of care that are very
Right.
restricted, like very well, we only here to give the treatment to a patient and talk about the treatment. All of a sudden that becomes holistic. Oh yeah, I'm noticing. So if I feel like that about the cancer, what my patients will feel. Oh, I want them to have this support, psychological and emotional
Yeah.
support. And I'm opening the gate into integrative medicine, right? So they can explore a little bit more. Yeah, there is a there is a little bit of intention behind that approach, to be
Oh
honest.
yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
very connected to that.
And it makes me think of years and years ago, I heard this story where they were working with a bunch of high school students who could not read. And the
Mm,
problem with introducing someone to reading is the books are see spot run, run spot run. And for a 15-year-old, a 17-year-old, that feels really demeaning and it's a hard entry place. So what they did instead was, we want you to go and read for the first graders. We want you to go and read for the 6-year-olds. And this is the book that the 6-year-olds are interested in. And so they were willing to wrestle with this very, very kiddie thing
yeah,
because it wasn't about them. It was about them being able to share this thing with someone else.
that's right.
And you're
Yes.
having this back door of getting an opportunity to train the
Yeah.
clinicians by going, I have something that's going to make this process easier for the people you are caring for. Let's try that particular thing out. And then they get more lived experience, not just that first time. And now it's something they want to use with the people they're serving, but because we've snuck in the back door with them. Like, like you're modeling the way very deliberately how we're
Yeah.
able to share this with people in a way that makes them more receptive to it. You're talking about the missteps you made at the beginning. In the first 18 months I was a tapper, I talked more people out of tapping than talked them into it. Like there are people who are interested that I managed to drive away because
Yes.
I didn't know how to have those particular conversations. And so I really love the model that you're talking about here to enter it in for them to be able to access it.
And with more experienced clinicians, so I have consultants who are 25, 30 years in
Yeah,
that space. I used to go science with them as well before, but
right.
now I go and I say, what's the biggest problem for you right now? You have restricted time. You work with people in the complexity, and that's the key word as well, is a complexity. If you can reduce emotional load in the complex environment,
Yeah,
this is what they want. So difficult decision making process, end of life conversations, breaking bad news, introducing patients coming in, and then consultant telling them about the cancer diagnosis. Patients switches off straight away. I mean, they go fight, flight, freeze response,
right.
but the consultant's still talking. So what I teach them is notice what's happening, ask the leading questions, right? And then
Yeah,
by that, then you can offer something different. And I've got consultants who are just sitting there and tapping like that
right,
with patients while they're talking. So that's the winning thing for me. So we don't do, like, I don't teach consultants EFT level 1, 2, and 3. I teach them
right.
simple tapping, down regulating in the moment. And that's what is a great way of doing it.
And one of the things I want to underline what you're doing there is, so one of the real changes for me in the last probably 18 months is I have stopped thinking about tapping as an approach, and I've started thinking about it as a tool that has multiple approaches. Like what you're describing is my friend John DeWitis, who is going to be joining us in a couple of hours. She doesn't call that tapping; she calls it emotional first aid. Like it isn't even, it's like she doesn't even group it that particular way, because I'm not offering you a tool, I'm offering you a response to what you're experiencing at this
Right.
particular moment. And it like just from a marketing point of view, all good marketing is, I understand you, I care about you, I have a plan.
Yeah.
And we make the mistake when I go, I have a plan because I care about you and I understand you.
Yeah.
That version of it is about me.
Yeah.
The version you're sharing is about them. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I know exactly what it's like to be in this particular moment and how hard it is.
Yeah.
I've lived through it. And so let me share with you something really, really simple I found in the moment that makes it easier for you and easier for them. And the care is better and you feel better when you're walking out of it. And all of a sudden, that becomes something that is so much easier for someone to embrace,
Yeah.
because I'm starting from your concern, your need, your discomfort. I'm not starting from my tool that I'm sharing with you.
Exactly that. And I will add one more thing, is that space in which the doctors and the nurses can offer
Yep.
something like that in response to emotional distress. As like John Dee is saying, is a first aid tool, emotional
Yeah.
first aid tool. It's great because what it does is the one thing in terms of prevention of post-traumatic stress disorder. So if you look at the great work of Prof. Grinberg here in the UK, who is doing a lot of great work in trying to prevent developing of post-traumatic stress disorder. So
Right.
we know now in the world that there is a lot of treatment for it, but the prevention isn't really good because we don't know how to measure the risks.
Right.
He did develop a great measuring risk tool, but the first response that he is saying is really crucial is normalizing the experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we have done as a clinicians for years, we were, okay, if you're anxious, reach out into a mental health team, right?
Yeah.
But taking that back into us and saying, I'm noticing this is normal. You can
Yeah.
do a little bit of breath work, and I will show you this the tool that it will just help you out to come in the moment so you can think clearer. That's it. You're normalizing the experience. That is human experience. Having a cancer diagnosis will take you
Yeah.
into those places. It's a human experience which you normalize, and you providing something that is helpful in the moment. And that's enough. That is enough to prevent post-traumatic stress, injury, and possibly post-traumatic stress disorder. We see that shift.
Yeah. And the, that entry point in that particular way just makes it so much like Gene's favorite made up statistic. 37% of my work is normalizing the human lived experience.
Yes.
And the moment we're in a circumstance to go, you're experiencing this. Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense because. And for someone to have this, because when we are things that cause that sort of trauma are extreme, unexpected, and isolating. And the moment we can take away one of those things by going, okay, this isn't actually isolating. You are surrounded by a group of people who get it. We understand. We've been in those shoes. We've had those hard conversations. We've had the unexpected twist and turn of diagnosis and care inside of that particular thing. That makes it so much easier for someone to go, okay, other people have lived through this. I can live through this particular thing as well as we're navigating this. That becomes such a useful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's just, in the few minutes that we got left, I'd love to hear the other side of that particular thing. What does it look like as you are working with and responding to and introducing these tools to patients? And like you said, as we started, people who are touched by this, the families who are the caregivers, the loved ones who are accompanying them on this journey. What does that look like?
So usually for me, when patients are being referred to me, they are in crisis.
Yeah.
So they're coming in completely emotionally loaded. So it's the introducing EFT is the easiest. So for patients, that's very easy because this is exactly what it is. Would you like to try something? So maybe before that, I always have been and always will be, probably until someone tell me this is the wrong way and give me evidence for it, is I start from really building that trust that people have a lot of skills and tools to down-regulate their emotional states. We have that naturally. Whether that is helpful one or not helpful, that's the different thing, right?
Right.
It could be addiction. It could be behaviors that are quite dangerous for people. It could be breath work, meditation, whatever that is, right? But we have it.
Yeah,
and
we all have tools.
Would you like? Exactly. Yeah. Would you like to have something else on top of it? I mean, I trust that you have it, but you're here now. Therefore, that may not be working or may actually be disturbing you, right? Or may damaging you. So you're here for the reason. So would you like to try something else, something additional? I never said this is the best. This is one of the greatest. Although I believe it, I start from that point. So it's that therapeutic relationship needs to start from appreciation that they have it. And then that crisis in that moment, because that's what usually referred to me, then we start from, would you like to try something else? And I don't go into any explanation. I don't even tell that I'm a cancer nurse, all that sort of things comes later. We just go straight in and we tap.
And the thing and the thing I love what you're doing inside of that is you're modeling very clearly affirmative consent. Like, I have something, are you interested in it? And like that can be a hard thing when I really believe I have something that is going to make it better for you, to be able to offer it in such a way that I'm offering it as a gift that you are choosing to pick up. Because if you choose to pick it up, you're much more likely to engage with this in I don't want to say honest or authentic way, but an open-hearted way to engage with that particular thing, because I'm not being told by someone in a white coat or whatever the professional outfit that you are wearing is. I'm saying, hey, you interested? Great. Awesome. Let's have this conversation. And I think that models for all of us who are helpers in the world. I know something, would you be interested in that, is it's such a simple piece of vocabulary, but it makes such a big difference in engaging in that particular way.
Yeah, I think that is my way, and that's where the door opens. And then my big dream is actually for not having people in crisis, because usually what it is, we deal with that, and that's great, and that's majority of my work. We start from down regulating the crisis, and then we move into meaning making, the complex decision, all that thing that comes in with that cancer diagnosis. But the first is the crisis. I wish that to shift, and that's the integrative models that we really advocating for. So for people, and the other thing is, that's another selling point for me, is like, we don't have to talk. So
Yeah.
many people get into that crisis because they've tried talking therapies before.
Right.
I'm not saying they're wrong. There is a space for it, and I work very
Yeah.
closely with talking therapists in my clinic. But a lot of people have tried everything before and they don't want to do it, especially they have trauma from past. They
Yep.
have been through the journey of talking therapies and they hate it. So when they land in the place when they have the cancer diagnosis, they are done with that.
Right.
So the moment I said, we don't need to talk, let's just do this for a moment and see how that
Yeah.
feels. And almost, 99.9%, the talking comes. It comes
Yeah.
because it's
Absolutely.
safe. So I
Yeah.
don't start from let's talk about your issues first. No, we start from tapping, we start from normalizing, we start from safe space, and then we can explore if that's the reason that you're here, because
Yeah.
sometimes they just want it to happen. That's it.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, Aga, thank you very much for sharing your 87. The amazing thing is in this conversation is we haven't talked about the work that you were doing in Poland for Ukraine. Like there's this whole other story that at some point you and I are going to have to capture on video and
We
have
will.
that conversation as well, because like that also like that was actually my first introduction to you, was getting a chance to hear you talk about that absolutely amazing work. And so like I don't know where you put all of these hats as you were doing all of this stuff, but thank you very much for sharing your experience. Thank you very much for sharing like the journey of not like this is how I do it, but this was the process along the way. These are the pits that I stepped into. These are the lessons that we got from those particular things. Because like sometimes simply being handed a map or a process, it's hard for us to embrace and recognize it without seeing like the it's easier for me to learn something from you when I understand how it was earned.
Yeah.
And like earned as in just your lived experience and being able to do that particular thing. So thank you for sharing all this information, but also thank you for sharing your personal journey as we've been navigating our way through this. Like I think that is a useful part that makes it easier for us to latch on and pull the useful bits for us out of that.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. And thank you
Awesome.
for all supporting this great cause, Peaceful Heart
Awesome.
Network. So yeah, dear
Excellent.
friends of ours.
Hopefully I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye.
You bet. Awesomeness. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. As you look at the screen right now, you can see a link to the entire playlist of every single conversation for previous 24 hours of tapping. There are over 120 presentations waiting for you. And please consider supporting the amazing work of the Peaceful Heart Network.